Now, if you love listening to the Financially Free Journey podcast, then you will love our premium subscription edition of the show. You will get early access, ad-free listening, and bonus content that you will not hear on the regular show. So make sure that you hit the subscription button and join the premium fun. If you have ever thought about starting a podcast, using the Podcorn platform is a must. Podcorn is a marketplace that connects podcasters to amazing sponsorship opportunities and really allows you as the host to maintain creative freedom and full control of your show. Now, I personally use the platform, and I know that Podcorn helps keep you protected and compensated for all of the work that you do. Make sure to click the link in my show notes to get started with Podcorn today. Here's something that I think is really important for anybody that's listening to this show. You obviously want to take charge of your finances, but one thing that's hard sometimes is to see your total net worth, all of your assets and your liabilities all on one page, right? So I want to talk to you about an amazing partner with the show, and they're called Personal Capital, and they are a digital wealth management company, and they believe that everyone deserves to feel confident about their money. And they really focus on transparency to people's financial lives with their state-of-the-art digital planning tools. Guys, I love this platform because it makes it so simple to look at your assets, your liabilities. You can, connect your bank accounts, your investment accounts, any loan that you have outstanding. And they also have really great cash management and investment solutions that really combine the logic of sophisticated technology with the expertise of advisors who really have people's best interest at heart. So, of course, as always, guys, I've got a great opportunity for you. I'm going to link it in the show notes in the description of this episode. So make sure that you go check out Personal Capital. Click on the link in the show notes. You're going to get a great offer there, and you're going to be able to really propel yourself in your journey to financial freedom. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Financially Free Journey podcast, and I'm your host, Courtney Dyer. And if you're new here, this podcast aims to dispel the seemingly complex topic of personal finances, money management, debt, savings, investing, retirement, and small business, and anything that really supports your journey to financial freedom and really building wealth. So welcome to the show today, and if you haven't already, make sure that you go and you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, and also make sure that you get notifications when new episodes are posted. I've been doing about 2 a week, and so I think I'll continue doing that because that's what you guys have really told me you want to hear. So without further ado, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what I've been up to this last week. I don't know about you guys, but I am very type A, so I'm always trying to do tons of stuff at once. Like I think of a new project and I have 10 projects going on because I'm always trying to get better and better myself. And something that I found this week that I think you guys would enjoy if you're anything like that, I found this new planner, and I'm such a list maker. And so I'm always writing to-do lists everywhere, and that's what controls my day, very type A. But I found this planner, and it's called The Balanced Mind, and it's a guided planner for the overly ambitious, under-motivated, and anyone in between. And I found it on Amazon, but what I love about it is that it's like a full-on book, but at the beginning of the planner really goes and guides you through priorities as far as things that I must complete for the week, I would love to do the following this week, or I would earn bonus points if I did this. And the reason why I love this and I wanted to share this with you guys is because when we're on our journey to building wealth, there's some tasks that may seem overwhelming or things that we just want to put off, right? And so sometimes it's hard to differentiate tasks that are high priority versus tasks that are kind of easy. And it's like, hey, let me get that out of the way. So I love this planner because it really helps me identify these are I must completely do these this week. This is non-negotiable versus the ones that are like, hey, I would just like to do this. And so to prioritize those correctly. And then also just listing like the projects that I'm working on, people I need to contact. And there's also a whole section just about your health and things that you need to do there. Because again, we know if we're taking care of our body and our mind that our wealth will build and our wealth will follow, which I love. And the best part, because you guys know I'm all about accountability, is really what did you do this week that you had set out to accomplish. So there's that recap or check-in section at the end instead of you set this whole list and these goals for yourself and then there's no accountability. So I love it. You guys should check it out. I'm going to link it in the show notes for you because I am a huge list maker and planner user, and I love this one. So I thought I would share that recommendation with you guys. So I wanted to introduce you to the guest that's going to be on this episode later. We already recorded this a few weeks back, but his name is Brandon Miller. And for more than a decade, Brandon has really been involved in immigration and settlement for people coming to Canada. And what I find so interesting about this topic is a lot of people in their wealth building plan, they look at getting second passports to Canada from the United States specifically. And I had never thought about this concept, so this was really new to me. And after talking to Brandon, I just found it so fascinating, and I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. A lot of people, like he told me, they will plan on getting, a second passport in Canada. They go to college in Canada for free, and then they retire in Canada because the, tax bracket is very different there going into retirement. And so there's just some really interesting aspects. And he actually published a book. It's called Second Passport, and it outlines the system and really introduces the idea and the benefits of a second passport in Canada for Americans. So just let me know what you guys think about this. This is something I had not thought about. So without further ado, here is my interview with Brandon Miller.
I'm good. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad we were able to connect. And again, I love that play, Maple Immigration Services. I mean, that's what I connect with Canada is like some good maple syrup.
You know what? It's funny. As you may or may not know, I spent a lot of time overseas, and one of the reasons that I selected that name is people kept referring to it, especially in India, as the Maple Country. And I'm like, they're
funny.
Like, oh, you're from the Maple Country. I'm like, yes, I am, apparently. So, yeah.
That is funny. You're like, we have snowmen and maple trees.
Yeah, and syrup.
That is awesome. Yeah, so tell the listeners a little bit about your background, because you have spent some extensive time overseas, and really kind of how that played into your journey to being able to help people with immigration, specifically in Canada.
Yeah, so I originally went to school and I studied law. And then as soon as I finished my undergrad, I went and did what a lot of people do. I went overseas to teach English. So the idea is that I was going to go away for a year, do whatever you do in the year. And then I was going to come back and finish off law school. So I had such a good time being overseas and just, discovering the world. It's really funny because, what got me about the world is that, you learn a lot of stuff, you read a lot of things, you watch stuff on TV, Discovery, whatever, but then actually getting out there and living it, it was infectious. I was addicted to it. So that 1 year turned into 4, and then it turned into coming back to Canada. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going again. And I ended up spending about 15 years overseas. The benefit for me in terms of that is that I got to really identify with the world. I found that the world's actually a pretty small place when you actually do look at it. So then I found that with immigration, I actually re-immigrated back into Canada when I came back. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, really being able to connect your time overseas and understanding, I think that integral part that it plays into the immigration process, because the world is small, but there are a lot of similarities in regards to the complexities of immigration in particular. And I'm sure that your time of going from country to country, you saw that this is something that people need help with, right?
Well, it's funny because I know what it's like to be the new person in a new country. So that's the first thing. It allows me to identify that with my clients. So that's one very important thing. The other thing is too, when I say that I re-immigrated back into Canada, I got married overseas. And
where'd you get married?
I got married in the Philippines. So
fantastic.
Right. I spent 8 years in the Philippines, mostly because I was like, I was spending a lot of time in Asia, but I don't know if you've been to the Philippines, but it's got like tropical weather. Everybody kind of speaks English. It's got a lot of the Western conveniences that you would want, as opposed to being in like Northeast Asia where you're eating kimchi 3 meals a day. And it's very difficult at that time to find some of the comforts
Right.
of home.
It's very American friendly.
Right. So
Mhm.
I stayed there for 8 years, but then, when everything kind of changed for me is when my first daughter was born over there. And I was like, yeah, I got to go back to Canada because I'm not looking at the place the same as I was before.
Right.
It was more of a safety, like what's the future look like, all that stuff. And it's similar to what a lot of my clients identify with is like, yeah, I'm looking for a safe, secure home that I can go settle in. And it was like kind of like almost like a light switch with me when my daughter was born. I was like, yeah, I gotta go back to Canada and, do what a lot of my clients do. So that in itself actually allows me to identify and understand a lot of the journey that people are going through, especially like I'm actually coming back here, but I'm educated. I have a network here. I've done all of like grew up here. So I had a bit of a head start, whereas other people,
Right.
not as much.
I want to touch on, because with the show, The Financially Free Journey, a lot of the listeners, the majority of the listeners are looking to obtain financial freedom so they can have time freedom, right? Being able to do what they want, when they want, where they want. And a lot of people have that ultimate dream of travel. And so, in your situation, in regards to not just traveling, but living overseas is a whole other thing in itself, right? I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
intricacies that go into it. And so, do you have any tips for maybe a listener that's wanting to, maybe retire, quote unquote? And that's such a old school term, but they want to, have that next phase overseas in a different country. What are some things that they need to look into to, prior to going to that country to see if it's a good idea?
Oh, geez. Well, I'll just talk in general if you're going
Yeah.
anywhere. So I really think that, the first thing that I look at is why am I going there? What's my lifestyle like? Right. So a lot of times I'll tell you one mistake that I made with the Philippines is that I've been to pretty much every country in Asia, and the Philippines is one of the last places that I went to. And it was just on a whim. I fell in love with the place, but the place is fantastic when you're on vacation. And this is where a lot of people don't really like, if you're going and living there, like look at it as a little bit longer term venture in terms of it's not just a great vacation spot. And I remember I was actually sitting on a dive boat in the southern Philippines, and there was these two English guys that had a dive operation. And one of the people said, oh, it's so awesome that you're living in paradise all the time, because it really is beautiful, right? But the guy made a comment that really stuck with me. He said, place is really great, but it's not paradise when you live here. And I was like, you hit the nail on the head.
Interesting.
Yeah. So don't fall in love with the place, because I can tell you, for me, going to the Philippines on vacation is one thing, but living there and trying to operate a business there with all of the complexities of, at the time, dodgy internet, the different things that were going on, like it's difficult when you're working there, and it's not that. So that's the first thing. Secondly, a lot of people, what they'll do is you have to figure out if you're going to spend most of your time in the expat population, or you're going to spend time kind of with the local population, or a mix in between. I've always found a nice little median in kind of both worlds, but there's people that will go there and it's like, yeah, I'm an American, but I'm hanging out with all Americans and Canadians, and I'm not doing anything local, and I run to 5-star hotels on the weekend, et cetera, et cetera. So I would think that, kind of have a nice mix between the two, because for me, some of my best experiences have been like very local experiences. So yeah, those are just some tips of advice I would think that people should dive into, and don't fall into that trap either, where, yeah, I'm going to this country, but I'm actually not going there. I'm hanging out with other people from my country.
If you're looking at it from a sandals resort perspective,
Right.
it's going to be very different than the people that leave the sandals resort and they go and they live in the local
Exactly.
communities. And so I know, with the topic of financial freedom, that live abroad is a huge subset of, the financial freedom or like the FIRE movement.
Right.
And so you can fall into that trap where it's like, oh, Costa Rica is not all I thought it was going to be, or Grenada, or, wherever it is that people are looking. There's a lot of different places that are kind of like those hot spots for the FI subgroup of financial independence. And so from your perspective of doing it for over a decade, I wanted to know, like, what are those pitfalls? And so that is such a good tip. Like, go somewhere, but leave the resort, leave the hotel, have a local experience, look at the amenities that are available to you in that country and see if that makes sense for you,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to me how many people I met and they were just like, wow, you did that? Like, it's like, yeah, man, like just get out. People, I find that, no matter where you go, and I'm pretty well traveled. I think I'm really well traveled, but
I can think about that.
So, anytime you go to a country, honestly, if you go, people are the same the world over. If you go with a smile on your face, you learn a few words like thank you, I'm sorry, how much, and hello, you're good, right? But it's all about the attitude, because even though you don't speak the language, you can dive in and have a very local experience very easily, right? Yeah. Which is good. And I think that's, my big takeaway is the world's actually a very small place and everybody's the same and they just want the same thing. They just want to, make a decent living, have a nice, easy life and have a nice, secure place for themselves and their family. And that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. No, it's a great perspective to look at it from. And I have a follow-up question because I know the listeners are wondering this right now. Like, Brandon, how did you support yourself to just, it wasn't your plan to go like live overseas for a decade. So how did you financially make that happen?
Oh, man. What a great question. I don't know, is the answer. I do. So I started off teaching English and then, so that afforded me a pretty good salary while I was doing that for the time. Then I got a job teaching at a university, which was probably the easiest job ever. I had like 5 months paid vacation. I was working 4 days a week, like 9 hours a week. And I was making, pretty decent money with a, like they supply the accommodation and stuff too. So that was great. But I didn't use my time to just kind of sit around and like, do things, surf the internet or whatever. I actually started a business. So my business, basically, I started helping other people come and, get a job overseas, but then it morphed into educational consulting. And that's actually what supported me there. So yeah, I started running a business at like 24 and I've ran it ever since. So that actually afforded me the opportunity to be able to do that. I set up a company in the Philippines and different places, and it morphed into some educational software development and some offshoring of curriculum and bringing things like that. So yeah, but I'll tell you what, I got into my 30s and I was doing okay with my business and stuff, but I really hated what I was doing. And that's when I found law again and I got into immigration. So I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, great. You have to have passion too, right? Yeah. And I was just talking about this on another episode. It's like you can be making really great money, you can be excelling in certain areas, but if you're not having passion, like if you wake up in the morning and you dread what you do, like, I wish I could call out today. It's a great way to, introspectively look at what you're doing and say, is there a way that I could transform my career into something that I'm passionate about? And it sounds like you did that with immigration. And, and I want to talk a little bit about, Maple Immigration Services and how that blossomed and what it is that you do exactly to help people.
So I like to think of myself as a guide through government bureaucracy and getting people through the immigration system as quickly and easily and cost effectively as possible. So what does that mean? So I actually, I will help people get through the immigration system by actually putting together their application and representing it to the government. Now, recently, what I've done with Second Passport is that's actually been something that I've wanted to do for a while, because I find legal services are an old, antiquated way of doing things. It's like, hi, I'm Brendan. I'm really smart. Pay me money. I'll do this for you, right? So I like to think that, some people I've met over the years, they can actually get through the immigration process themselves if they have a little bit of help, because really at the end of the day, they're rolling the dice. If you're going in and you're taking what you read off the internet, you're proceeding very uninformed, because there's these little traps that are set everywhere.
Let's talk really quick about Fiverr. Now, I love the platform Fiverr, and if you haven't heard of it, you are totally missing out. There's two different aspects to it that I want to talk to you guys about really quick. Number one is you can go on there and you can make money as an expert or a content creator. You can do things like graphic design, building logos, websites, the list goes on and on. It's a fantastic way to have an additional stream of income. Okay, that's number one. If you're not doing that already, you have to go check it out. Number two, I can't tell you how many gigs I have personally booked on Fiverr, literally over 100, and I have loved every single one of them. The creators and the experts that list their expertise and skills on the website are phenomenal. And so because of that, I have a fantastic deal for you guys. I've partnered with Fiverr to get you a discount. If you use the link in the show notes, you will get 20% off your first order. And I want you guys to just go check it out, go browse it. You can do logo design, influencer marketing, social media presence, building websites. I mean, the list goes on and on. So if you're wanting to up your game, Fiverr is absolutely the platform for you. I am back at it with some money saving tips for you guys. Today I want to talk to you about Honey. Honey is an online extension to your browser that automatically finds the best deals and coupons on the internet. They have thousands of companies that they find coupons for. They scour the internet for you. So no more manually searching for coupons or the best deals. Honey will do it for you. And get this, Honey is a free extension that you add onto your browser. I will go ahead and add the link to the show notes. So go ahead and click on that link and you can upload Honey and start saving today.
Depending on which program you're in. So what I've done with Second Passport is that allows people the option to actually do it themselves, do it with some help, or we can just do it for you through Maple Immigration. So I actually will give people the choice in being able to do that, or I'll represent the file, or they can do it and just get the services they need at the time they need it. So
let's talk a little bit more about Second Passport and that concept, because I know that it's a published book that you've done as well. You're a published author. Wanted to throw that in there, but Second Passport really outlines the system and really introduces the idea and benefits of a second passport in Canada. So talk to the listeners a little bit about a second passport. Like, why would you need that? What are the benefits? And why is that a trend that's happening?
Okay, so I'm going to dive in here. So where are most of your listeners? Because I'll contextualize that mostly to there.
The majority, I would say 90% are in the United States, Canada, and Australia. Those are the top three regions.
Okay, all right. So I'll talk about it. There's a lot of Australians that come here, and we're seeing more and more Americans that are coming here. Obviously, Canadians don't really have much use for my services. But so from an American context, a lot of times what we're seeing now, and again, I don't want to go all political on this, but I've seen a bump in interest in Canada over the recent years at specific intervals, depending on what it is. But the difference is in 2020, and the reason that we've seen this bump is that it's more sustained, and it's actually quite substantial. Like, you'll see all this stuff in Google, interest in Canada, and the websites crash, et cetera, et cetera. That's all fine. But what we're seeing now is that people are actually looking at it and saying, where are things going? Where do I want to be? And what do things look like in like 20, 30, 40 years? I actually had somebody, I did a consultation with a guy last week who was in New York, and he said, I'm kind of looking at like what things are going to look like in 75 years for my kids and grandkids. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I speak to people like that, and I hear that more and more, people are really planning ahead. And this is the thing, right? Like if you look at, I always use the example of Venezuela. Like go look at Venezuela like 25, 30 years ago. Place was
Yep.
fantastic. Look at it now, right? And I don't want to sit here and go doom and gloom, but in the Western world, we haven't had this idea of having a second passport. It's not something that is top of mind. But if you start looking at other countries around the world, this is just something that people do. Like having a multiple passport, having that exit if they need it it's kind of one more tool in their thing. In terms of an American client, for instance, a lot of people look at it, and the number one thing that we hear is healthcare. Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. And I'll hear that all day long. Other people are talking a little bit more about education and student debt, things like that. You can actually come here, go to school cheaper, get the same level of education and not have like at international student rates. And also with the fact that the Canadian dollar is, a lot cheaper now, you're getting $1.20 and still get ahead. And at the same time, you'll get a work permit and you'll be able to get a passport out of it too. So it's kind of a no brainer, but I think a lot of people are just looking at the direction of where things are going. They're looking at a lot of people don't look at like the worker mobility, but we have a lot of different treaties, for instance, with bilateral treaties for worker mobility. And for your Australians that are coming here, we have something called the IEC, which is the International Experience Canada, which is a working holiday that's open to Australians. It's unlimited. If you're under the age of 35, you can have a 2-year work permit, fill out some paperwork and get that sorted. It's pretty easy. And we extend that same courtesy to Canadians that want to go work there, or Australia extends that same courtesy to Canadians that want to work there. So that's actually something that, all these little agreements that are out there too. Canada has a lot of them. So whether it's South America or Europe or Asia, there's lots of things like that.
Well, it sounds like, Brandon, that one of the biggest reasonings from your clients is they want options, right? So it's not saying I don't like the country I'm currently in.
Exactly.
You're giving yourself an opportunity to have options in regards to, because no one can predict the future, but you gave the example of Venezuela, right? And 30 years ago, I don't know if at that time the majority of citizens of Venezuela could predict the hyperinflationary state that they're currently in their economy and how hard it is for citizens. Because as you mentioned, it used to be a really great country that attracted a lot of immigrants. And now it's like people are fleeing that country. So you see more of a export versus an import for immigration. And so, it sounds like Canada has a lot of options for people immigrating in that could make it beneficial for them to have that. Now, would it be dual citizenship? Like, walk us through some semantics of how that works to have a second passport in Canada.
So what a great question. So it's basically, think of it like this, and I'll use the American context. So you can get a green card, and we call that permanent residency. So once you get permanent residency here, you would file an application for permanent residency. And then to maintain that permanent residency, you have to be physically present in Canada 2 out of 5 years, which actually, you could come, stay for 2 years, and then go away for a bit, or you could literally come, land, and then go away for like 2.5 years and come back and live for another 2 if you want, or you can do it in pieces. It's up to you. Once you're physically present in Canada for 3 years, then you can apply for citizenship. And once you apply for citizenship, then you can literally leave for like 40, 50, 60 years and come back and retire if you want and take advantage of some of the different benefits or things like that if you want. But it also opens up a number of different pathways in terms of worker mobility. And you were saying like options, like I'm all about the options too. And I think that that's where a lot of people need to have their thinking around. But again, having the passport as an American, as an Australian, anybody, a lot of countries allow you to carry 2 passports. And again, I just think, when you think about it in a lot of different contexts, there's a lot of different things that benefits to it. So outside of the healthcare, which again, I know I keep hearing over and over, mostly people wake up to that about 35 to 38. I find I get a lot of people in that cohort that are asking. And I'm
Well,
like,
because you see at that point, 35 to 38, or even, early 40s, you're almost at the peak of your earning within your career. And so when
right.
you see your tax bracket increase and you see that, and the amount that you're paying for healthcare and how it's such a big chunk of the money you're making, I think that's another reason why I see people, that's a big concern. Once you
Yeah.
reach that, it's not necessarily age, it's you're reaching that peak earning potential season of your career, and it's like, whoa, this is a lot of money, so
Well,
people have questions.
I thank you for contextualizing it like that, because I didn't think of it in terms of that earning manner before, but I get a lot of people like between that age bracket that are contacting me,
Yeah.
and they're saying, I want to come to Canada. And I'm like, I wish I talked to you like 10 years ago, because I could have made that happen for you. But now you're going to have to put in some work. Right.
Right.
Because, it's not just a straight shot. I always call Canada a bit of a Ponzi scheme, because we have all these really great retirement benefits and medical and prescription and all these different benefits that are geared towards, retired workers, which are great. However, we got to keep this thing rolling, and we have to do that with workers and a tax base and things like that. That's why they're leaning towards bringing in, the prime age is between 20 to 29, because we need the workers to be able to support the retirees, because obviously in the Western world, that baby boom that's moving through
Yes.
still. So, yeah. So I think the stats were in the 70s, we had six workers to every retiree. Currently, I think we have 3 to every retiree, and by
Yes.
2035, we'll have 2. So
Yeah.
we're bringing in people.
Have you read The Power of Zero? Have you ever read that book?
No, I have not.
Oh, literally verbatim what you just said with the stats. It used to be 1 to 6, so there was no issue with the sustainability of, and specifically in the United States, the Social Security system. And then now we're down to 1 to 3, right? And when it's going to 1 to 2, it's like, is the system going to be able to progress and support these generations? Yeah. So I can see why Canada is incentivizing the younger working population, because there's more longevity with them contributing to the workforce.
It's a big problem, not only in Canada, but the Western world. And I think we've recognized it here. And, a lot of places, there's a lot of fear with immigration. Oh, people are coming in, they're taking our jobs, this and that. It's not true. It's actually not true, because in any country, especially in the Western world, a lot of people that come in, they're doing a lot of the jobs that a lot of people don't want to do. And if you look at the progression of people that are coming through immigration wise, second generation immigrants tend to excel quite well. And I can guarantee you, there's the thing here that people say. I was speaking to somebody that was calling me out on this, and I was like, they're like, oh, we're bringing in these people to work in Tim Hortons, which is the coffee shop here, that little thing, right?
Right.
So they said, I was like, yeah, but I can guarantee you the kid of that worker is probably not going to be working in Tim Hortons. They'll probably be owning it, right? Because that's just the way it works. They work really hard, generally is what the stats are. So I think that we're a little bit further ahead in terms of the immigration context in a lot of different countries, because a lot of people fear it. But what's really going to happen in the Western world is that a lot of people are there, there's going to be a real shortage of people, and you're going to start seeing a lot of those systems collapse and not be able to do that. So I'm sure that's probably covered in that book that you're referring, but yeah.
Yes. No, it's the same concept. It's just, again, it's very interesting to hear it from your perspective as well, working within the immigration system and helping people. And so I wanted to get your take on it, because that is a big worry for a lot of people. Like, I'm paying into this system. Is it going to be there when it's my turn to draw? And that's a worry for not just individuals contributing, but for countries, right? And specifically Canada in this situation. So as far as the listener and them being able to take this topic and say, okay, let me digest this. How does this pertain to me? What are some questions that they should ask themselves to say, is a second passport something I should look into?
Wow, what a great question. So some of the questions, I like to work with people that are really forward thinking. I mentioned the guy that was like 75 years in advance. whenever I get people that are thinking ahead like that, and I think it's a really, it's a good question to ask. Like, what is life going to look like in 20, 30 years, right? Like, I I don't know, right? What's it going to look like for my kids or my grandkids? What's the trajectory? Like, we don't know, but having those options, I think is huge. From a younger person's perspective and having a second passport, we could, you can take any topic. So there's the healthcare, which generally people start to wake up to because they're looking at the costs of things. So that's one thing. It's a no-brainer in that respect. Worker mobility, being able to move around quite freely in terms of the trade agreements and having multiple passports. That's a huge one. There's a lot of different things that we hear in terms of taxes that comes up here and there, retirement benefits, the education for people that are just entering the educational sphere, I think. So you want to, again, I think that's some of the things that the people should look at, but it's also like, maybe how am I going to be able to get ahead? Is something else that people are looking at too, because there's a bit of a squeeze going on everywhere in the world, right? So anything that we can do to kind of get ahead and kind of carve out our lot in life, I think is something that people might want to consider. And again, yeah. I'd like to go back to what you said, because I say it a lot and I think it's fantastic, is it's just all about options. It's having the ability to do that, because I can tell you what I see is that, I'll give you an example. When things happen in Ukraine or things happen in Hong Kong, I will see an interest, a very reactionary interest of people that'll be like, hey, thinking about coming to Canada. I'm like, why is that, right? Like, we'll see, like when strife happens in the world, people will start being like, hey, maybe I should do this or do that. It's very reactionary. I like to take the long-term approach where, hey, I'd like to have this in there in case I need it, or in case like my kids need it, because I can pass that citizenship on to my kids, grandkids, whatever. And it's a generational thing too, right? So
absolutely. No, it's just, again, it's depending on your particular situation, your viewpoint on how you see things heading in the future for whatever country you're located in, not just the United States or Australia. We have listeners in over 80 different countries. And so,
wow.
The fact that you have these options, and it may not have been something that, the listeners are aware of, right? Because this is not something that a lot of people talk about specifically in the Western world, as you had mentioned. It's not a big topic like, hey, let's make sure that we have that set up for ourselves or for our future generations of our family. So if the listeners want to know more about Second Passport and have additional questions for you, where can they go to get in contact with you?
You know what? What I'd like to do is because this is a very personalized type of process, and some people will have different questions here and there.
Yeah.
So I will just throw out my email.
Oh, good.
Yeah, if people want to email me, it'll just go direct to me. I'm always interested in hearing, why people are interested to come here and what they're looking for. So yeah, my email is brandon@mysecondpassport.ca. And if they mention that they heard me on your show, I will send them a copy of the ebook so they don't have to go.
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic. Guys, again, getting a book to increase your knowledge. And if this is a topic that you're interested in and seeing if this is something that would pertain to you or be a good option for you to have, make sure that you reach out to Brandon at his email. I will also make sure to link it in the show notes so you can just directly, click on it and you can send him a quick email. Because again, it's all about options. I think that's been the topic. And this ties into your financial freedom, because again, retirement looks different for everybody. And sometimes retirement looks better in a certain country. And so immigration is a topic to be able to look into if you're wanting to look at, having that option and if it makes sense for you personally. So Brandon, thank you so much for coming on and spending the time. And you just, you gave us some really good tips on traveling and immigration. It was like a dual topic today. So awesome. We got a lot of value out of this. Guys, as usual, if you aren't following the podcast on social media. It's at Financially Free Journey on all the platforms, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And make sure that you check out Brandon's email in the show notes. And I post daily tips and motivation to help you with your financially free journey. So until next time.